Hello, and welcome to the Ball and All podcast, the Basketball Africa League daily recap. My name is Mpho, and welcome to join us today. We're talking BAL playoffs, the Basketball Africa League playoffs. Let me just show you a picture of what the playoff schedule looks like. We can all just discuss that. So that's going to happen. The playoffs have been decided. The teams were seeded last night, same seeding as what I mentioned in the previous show. And so we're going to be talking a lot about that. And then we'll be going through and we'll be just discussing each of the matchups and seeing how it goes. But before we carry on, please do like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also to follow me on Twitter at my Instagram and Twitter handles there in the corner. It's at Mpho. So please do that. Let's get the basketball conversation going. Like the video so that the conversation of basketball can go around the world. Before I continue anything else, Happy Africa Day to all my fellow Africans, my fellow brothers and sisters around the continent. This is the best continent in the world. And with the Basketball Africa League is showing the world what great things we have on this continent. So it's a really great day. So just a happy Africa Day to everyone. So let's just have another look at that playoff picture. So the playoffs are going to be as follows. Obviously, the dates, 26th and 27th for the quarterfinals, semifinals 29th, third place player of the 30th, and the final on the same day. It's single elimination. 1 plays 8, 2 plays 7, 3 plays 4, 3 plays 6, 4 plays 5. So let's actually look at the schedule. So first playoff game, a quarterfinal tomorrow, will be Zamalek of Egypt against FAP, the Armed Forces and Police of Cameroon. That's going to be at 5:30. Then you've got Petro de Luanda of Angola against AS Saleh in a rematch of the match that happened on Saturday at 9 p.m. I'm sure Saleh will want to surprise Petro de Luanda. US Monastir of Tunisia on the 27th will be playing AS Douanes of Senegal in a 1-8 matchup. And then the 4-5 matchup, which is really intriguing because these teams played against each other at the qualifiers in the East Division of the BAL, being the Patriots, who won the East Division, and Ferroviario de Maputo, who came third in that competition. Then the winners of 1-8 and 4-5 will play each other in semifinal 2 at 5:30 on the 29th. And the winners of the 2-7 and the 3-6 matchup will play each other at 2 p.m. So there's a very interesting portion of the bracket, the Zamalek, FAP, Petro de Luanda, Saleh bracket, where you could get a Petro de Luanda Zamalek semi-final. That could be quite a spectacle to watch. It's like US Monastir on the one end, who have just blown out everybody, will just be waiting. They're the favorites to win it all, essentially, right now. But they'll be waiting to see the war that's going to happen on the right side of the bracket. And so let's talk about that. So let's talk about the first matchup, the 2-7 matchup. That is Zamalek versus FAP. I call this the battle of the defense because both teams are strong in defense. Both teams are top 4 in points allowed on defense. FAP is the 4th best team in points allowed. They've only allowed, I think it's 74 points, whereas Zamalek are the best. They've only allowed 60 points from their opponents. They're also Zamalek also ranked first in field goal percentage of the opponent, so they stop the opponents from scoring at a higher efficiency at 32%, with FAP 4th on that list. On the field goal list, on the field goal percentage list, FAP is actually 8th, with allowing their opponents 40% from the field, which still is no joke. And it's very, very good. But what's going to happen with in this match, and I think this matchup, because it's single elimination, anything can happen. That's what I need you to remember throughout anything can happen. Any team can have a bad shooting day. You can have just an off day, and things could happen, especially for the favorites. For FAP to win, they need to keep their defense at that level that they've kept throughout the tournament. Remember, this team lost to Petro de Luanda and Air Saleh by 3 points and 2 points respectively. So they took the game to that final shot. So it's more than possible they could do that to Zamalek as well, based on the great defense that they have. It's you need to impose turnovers, which is what FAP has done. I think they lead the league in turnovers forced. They do. They lead the league in turnovers, and so that's the interesting part about this game is that if FAP can. What FAP needs to do is keep doing what they're doing. So you have that doggedy defense, hands up, active hands. They're very lanky, they're very long, and so what you'd want is for them to have active hands. They need to take advantage of those turnovers that Zamalek will give them. I think Zamalek are also very are the worst team in terms of in this top 8 in terms of turnovers. So there will be opportunities. FAP just need to take care of business on the other end and just make sure that when they do get those opportunities, they put them away. So that's the first thing that they have to do. I think for FAP, they will need their bigs to get more touches inside, and also they would need Abdullah Haruna, the man from Niger, and Marcus Thomas Jr. needing to both of them have to score at least a minimum of 20 points per game. Scoring has been their problem in this tournament, and largely, especially late game situations when it's tight. It is a playoff. It is a single elimination, so every position counts. And Haruna and Thomas are really good. Haruna is the best. Is top 3 in terms of 3-point shooting percentage. I think he shoots it at about close to 40%. So that's something that they're going to have to try. Zamalek's going to have to try and cover, but Zamalek also have a great defense. They've got very young players. They've got an 18 and 19-year-old Abdelatif and Abdelatef as well there to help them out. So they've got they have depth, and I think the big issue is stopping Anas Mahmoud, who has effectively leads this team in rebounds and assists. And he reminds me of a Nikola Jokic, that stretch 5 that you could have, who can shoot from 3, who can facilitate as a point center, essentially. And then they've also got the backup center in Al Makawi. And if those two have a great game coming on the inside and try and harass FAP on the inside, they will have a great game. I think for FAP, they need to make sure that they close out the transition defense, and that's going to be something that they're going to have to try and stop. But Anas Mahmoud, if you can watch him, he's just an amazing player, and I'm excited to see him because he's Zamalek's a very good rebounding team, one of the best teams in terms of rebounding, and FAP as well. So it's gonna go down to the other end of the court, how you make your offense, and I think with FAP they've struggled throughout the tournament, and I think that's going to be one thing that they're going to have to sort out. But let's move over to the next team, the team in the same bracket, but in the same side of the bracket, being Petro de Luanda and Air Saleh for that second match tomorrow. This one's a rematch. The match that played on Saturday in Group B had Petro de Luanda beating Air Saleh 97-78. That one was just the bench of Petro de Luanda. And so if you look at that Petro de Luanda team, they've got about, I think it's 4 players who've scored 10 or more, who average 10 or more points per game, compared to Air Saleh, because Air Saleh only have Terrell Stoglin, who is the points leader in the BAL. He's got 93 points, averages 31 points per game. He is a danger man for Saleh. So too Rashad James. He scores at a high efficiency. Last game he scored at a field goal percentage of 64. So they'll be needing those guys to come through, that guard play, the wing play between Stoglin and James, Rashad James. Saleh will need them to score a lot more. Stoglin didn't have the best of shooting nights, but he still put up some very respectable numbers in 20 points. What they'll need is help from everyone else. And I think the big guy they'll need help from is Naja, their center. He's going to have to get a lot of touches inside and a lot of rebounds. He's going to try keep them defensive, because you're coming up against a top 3 defense in Luanda. They are up there in the defensive standings. And so especially in points. They've only allowed 69 points per game as an average. That's how good Luanda is with João Pedro, with Vander, with Carlos Moraes. They're really, really strong. And then obviously Childa Dindao, who's really good defender at that guard spot, who is their youngest player. So that's what ASL is going to have to try and stop. And what Pedro de Luanda's big calling card with their defense is that it turns it into quick offense. The moment they get a turnover, they get a steal, they get a block, which is stuff that they're really high up on. They'll go to the other end and move it out. They move the ball quickly. On offense, a very organized side, and that's what Air Saleh found out, because Air Saleh is essentially get the ball into Stoglin's hands or into Rashad James's hands. Not a lot of sets being played in the half court, whereas Pedro de Luanda in the half court are very comfortable. They effectively they space the floor well. João Pedro is probably the only guy who probably would sit inside the paint, but Vander would stay out, and it kind of works because Vander can shoot. That's number 41, Joaquin Vander. He's very good fire. Luanda might struggle to stop him, and so those are the type of things that you'd want to see. Luanda are were my early before tournament favorites, and I think they will be. I think we just need to see how they come up against US Monastir. But remember, they scored 97 points against the Saleh team, so it could be just one-sided like the first game is, which would be quite disappointing for the neutral. Now moving to the other side of the bracket, the number 1 seed against the 8th seed, that is US Monastir and Duanes. US Monastir, best offense in the game in the Basketball Africa League, 101 points. They have the best field goal percentage at 53.3 and the best 3-point percentage at 40%. And then the question I ask you is, how can AS Duanes stop this team? The one thing is AS Duanes needs to get a rim protector. They need to find a way to get Lamine Diop, who is their big rim protector, in there and defend. He's one of the best defenders in the tournament. I think he's probably top 2 with Ajay Baru. And he is just a really, really great player, is Lamine Diop for AS Duanes. And so they're going to have to try and get him some touches there. Lamine Diop averages about 2.7 blocks per 1.3 blocks per game. That's probably going to have to increase. He's going to have to rebound a lot more. And then on top of that, and that's the tough part about being in the playoff, your bench will shrink. So he's going to need help from the bench, especially in that center spot, to try and stop this Monastir juggernaut. Monastir will get a lot of points on the transition. Wael Araki has an 81% field goal percentage, and he's a guard. He's the number 2 point scorer in this tournament, and Wael Araki is a guard, and he's an 81 field goal percentage. What does that tell you? He drives to the basket. He gets most of his points in transition play. So you're going to need someone to either pick him up full court, or to be able to try and make sure that even in the half court, there's help defense on the way so he can let the ball go and dish it to someone else. You've got to be beaten by somebody else. The only problem is that somebody else could be also quite dangerous for you, and I think that's the situation with this Monastir team, is that at any point, guys they have 6 players with over 10 points per game. They have 6 players who shoot over 40% from 3 in this tournament per game. That is something that you can't fight. And something that AS Duanes is going to need to figure out a way to stop. They're not a bad defensive side. They're not the best in the league, but they're going to have to work hard to get this. And they hope that Monastir gets a cold night, in a cold shooting night. But even if that's the case, Monastir have got Atta Major James, who from South Sudan, who is probably who has 6 blocks in this tournament, so he averages 2 blocks per game. He is someone that Monastir has been using as the anchor to that defense, which is something that's been quite good. So this one's going to be interesting. Can the underdog pull it off? I doubt it, but let's see what pace the Senegalese bring, because they're going to have to push the ball against Monastir a lot quicker than they've been so far. The final game of the quarterfinals, this one is a really tasty one. 9 p.m. On the 27th, the Patriots, the home side of Rwanda, taking on Ferroviaria of Maputo, a rematch of the qualifiers in the East Division, and so the Patriots are going to be hoping that form continues, that they keep on going. The Patriots have only lost in the BAL. The Patriots won the most games because they played the most games in the qualifiers. They've only lost one game so far, and so that's going to be good. But obviously they played Monastir and they lost, and that's the only loss they have, and they did quite well there. So in this game, this one's going to be quite interesting because the Patriots are the favorites, but Ferroviaria have been scoring better. From a points perspective, I think if you look at Alvaro Massa, who has been a very great addition to them, he's averaging a double-double in this tournament and close to a triple-double there with some of the assists. And he's averaging about 23 points per game. He's a very good player for them, an important player for them. So the Patriots are going to have to try close him out. But the most important thing for this team is the most important man for Maputo is Ajay Baru. Ajay Baru turns that team into a very strong defensive team. His presence in the paint deters people from driving. He's a block machine, averaging I think 3.3 blocks per game. He gives them so much defensively, and it just helps them when it comes to offense, because then it brings in the guys like Mick Kabongo, Massa, and DeMarcus Holland the ability to be able to play, and that's what you want. Whereas I think from a Patriots side, you've got Brandon Costner, who does the same thing as Ajay Baru, but not as effectively. And then you've got Didier Ndieze, you've got Sadar Sagamba, the point guard, and you've got a very nice bench in the Patriots team with Aristide Mugambe coming off the bench, who is their captain. And so you find yourself with teams that are evenly matched, so it could go either way. I'm leaning the home side with the fans in the stadium, as well as the being the best team in the qualifiers. Even though Maputo can shoot, the first game that Ferroviaria played against Zamalek, they were shooting really well. They just couldn't stop Zamalek. But then Ajay Baru came back in, and then they did. They managed to stop them, to be able to play better basketball and stop teams from scoring on them. And I think that's going to be quite important. But the Patriots have had a really good tournament, and I'd love to see the Patriots in the semifinals coming up against US Monastir again. And hopefully anything can happen. I'm all for it. But either way, as a Southern African, Ferroviaria has to try and do it. I wouldn't mind if they did it just to fly the SADC flag high. And do that for Mozambique. So that's going to be quite interesting to see going into those quarterfinals. So let me just go through those quarterfinals one more time and the schedule so you can see. I'll be bringing you a daily show after these quarterfinals. Probably the morning after, because it's going to end quite late on my side of the world, especially after that Petro de Luanda Sale game. Hopefully it doesn't go well. Look, we wanted to go to overtime, so let's see how that goes. And then I'll be doing daily shows for these games and previewing the games to come. I've already previewed all of them, and then we'll do daily shows for the semifinals, before the semifinals on 28th, and then we'll have after the semifinal 2 on the 29th, I'll have a quick finals preview to kind of give you a little bit of a flavor and a sense of what to expect on that day, on the 4th. There is a 3rd and 4th place playoff for the losers of these semifinals. That happens at 12:30 on Sunday in Central African time. So there is something even for those people who lose in the semifinals. So thank you very much. So that's it for this show. And please don't forget to like and follow me on Twitter and Instagram, like the video on YouTube. And also remember that this has been the Basketball Daily Recap. I'll be back with you tomorrow or the following day on the 27th, or morning of the 27th, just to discuss the quarterfinals that happened the night before. So thank you very much for listening. I'll be have a good evening and enjoy the rest of your Africa Day. Myself, Mpho, good night and goodbye.